I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. It's a drought in New York City, Andrew. It's a drought. There's no water.
It hasn't rained in a while.
It's going to die.
Yeah.
I looked at the forecast. No rain on the horizon. It's time for you to do a little rain dance.
I thought you were putting together a mixtape from 2002, New York City, The Drought, featuring Jim Jones, Hell Rell, J.R. Ryder. But I've noticed it. I am a leaf peeper in New York City. I enjoy looking up at these beautiful leaves changing color.
By trade.
And they're just droopy right now, man. It's been kind of lackadaisical because of the water shortage.
I mean, I was honestly a bit concerned about fires.
That's not that dry.
Like, there's just... I mean, it sort of is.
Well, if it's...
There's no rain. It's just leaves everywhere. I'm not thinking about like a forest fire erupting in lower Manhattan, but those areas upstate, like Harriman Park and whatever, it's like there are fires there during the summer. I mean, granted, there's a lot less people.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be a fire like on Bedford Avenue, but yeah, if you get into garbage plate country, yeah, it's cold though. You know, like when it's cold and it's dry, it's not too bad.
Yeah, I remember driving through. I can't remember if I had gotten into Sicily at this point, but it was during the summer, and yeah, little fires just sort of pop up. I mean, it was 100 degrees, so there's clearly a temperature element to this. But I just remember driving down there, whatever they would call a highway there, and there's just fires popping up and people running over to put them out.
I mean,
so far, we have not seen
the theme of this week is dry, not just our sense of humor, but a lot of my friends stopped drinking in preparation of, one would say, the most glorious day in New York City, the New York City's calendar, which is the marathon. Did a bunch of your friends, like, our friends used to take months off because of rehab or relapse, because of drugs, because of drinking. Now they take a month off because they're training for marathons. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, we lost a few good soldiers from our basketball run. A few people disappeared from the nightlife scene because they wanted to run the New York City Marathon.
It's sort of like No Nut November, but for running in October.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's definitely the same.
Did you
thing.
peep any runners this
running
weekend?
instead of nutting.
Sorry to walk over your nutting
I went
joke.
over.
Yeah, you were setting up the nut joke, and I didn't see it.
I was repeating your nut joke, but I felt like it needed one more cadence. You know, the refractory period between the nutting jokes.
You wanted
was
to nail the
not that
nut
long.
joke.
I mean, we're in No Nut November.
Is that more interesting than running as an October behavior, right? Because there's sober January, No Nut November,
Sober January,
and October marathon shit.
That checks out. I did go up to the marathon for a little while. I've seen some people come up with a sort of cynical take, like, why would you go and watch and cheer for people just running? I'm like, I respect a contrarian New York City take, but it's good energy. What are you going to do, man? You go up there, there's people in a parade of ambling at various speeds, people cheering, having some beers. When it's a nice day, there is very little to object about. And also, like you're a car hater. I appreciate the value of a nice automobile, but it's a very anti-car day because all the streets are shut down, which again, to me, my issue is with the onerous rules against the good people who own cars. Shutting down streets, I'm fine with. So it is nice. You go over and it's like, here's Manhattan Avenue shut down. Here's Bedford Avenue shut down. It
sucks for walking, though.
It creates this huge pedestrian thoroughfare.
It sucks for walking because you can't get anywhere, right? You ask a cop, like, how do I cross the street? They're like, you need to dodge the runners. There's no way to get through other than, playing that video game through runners. I was like, oh, that makes sense.
So here's the thing, Andrew. I'm sure it's tougher with like a stroller and a family. I would guess. You just got to go with the flow.
Oh, right. We talked about this last year. You got to run with the salmon.
Yeah. Yeah. People want to make a beeline. Like, no. You got to. You're going to have to be in the marathon for about 10 seconds,
or just wait for a wave to pass. I have a couple friends who do it every year, so it's not a new thing for them. I have one friend who did it for the first time yesterday. They had been training for a month and doing all the dietary stuff, all the resting, all the psychological preparation for it. And on Strava, doing a marathon in its completion before the actual marathon. And when they finished, I was so surprised. They were like, that was kind of cool. I'll never do it again because I did not anticipate it being a primarily social event. He was like, when I run, I thought it was going to be like this internal kind of battle between the elements, my body, and my brain. Instead, it was me trying to wave to people, trying to find people who are in various places to greet me, to hug my family at the end, to post on social media, thank you, to have an after party and burgers and celebrate. He was like, that's a little much because your body is destroyed and you can't really provide people with what they want from you. And he's like, never again. It's like hosting your own party and doing an impossible physical feat.
It's kind of how I feel after going 3 for 7 on a Friday pickup run. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm out here, man versus nature, hoisting a couple of threes, and now you want to have brew dogs.
Is that kind of how you feel when you write in your third party vote tomorrow in the next few days? It's just like, ooh, this is gonna be tough for me to explain on social media, but heroes aren't forged without fire.
Election day tomorrow. So by the time you hear this, who can say what will be happening with this country? No, Andrew, I caved. I voted for Joe Biden.
That's cool. You wrote in the B dog in the space. You were just like,
it was wrong what they did to that man. I'm a Biden dead ender.
Yeah, you were in a game 7 fighting your opponent, but also hating your own team. So you're like, I'm just not going to shoot the ball because I hate my coach, I hate my teammates, and I hate the opponent.
I took a stand,
Kobe.
And I believed in my principles, and that's Joe Biden.
And now your guy, Donald Trump, is going to deport protesters, going to abolish the election, all that good stuff you're strategizing for in the game theory vacuum.
I gotta say, I dropped a really garbage ballot, like terrible ballot. You know how there's the initiatives that are on it, and there's like, all right, here's like 5 or 6 things, and there's so much reading, just an incredible amount of reading. And I, of course, was not informed about these ballot initiatives when I headed to the polls.
These are not.
And they're worded
basketball related, yeah. This is not a Cookies Hoops blog.
Initiatives, you say? And a lot of them are worded in a way to make it really ambiguous as to what you're taking a stance on. I mean, they're intentionally written in that way to appeal to the most voters. So there was one that was like you vote against injustice. I'm like, I don't like injustice. No, that sounds bad. And you're like, yeah, but who put this together?
Do you believe we should count money before we do budgets? I'm like, ooh, this wording is kind of leading the witness a little bit.
Right. So the one about injustice, it's like, well, sure, I am opposed to injustice, but you voted for this one? And guess what?
I mean,
Like, we're getting rid of affirmative action. Like, fuck. What happened?
you're onto a thing that I can kind of empathize with MAGA people about. It's like, okay, I walk into this voting station. It's paper, it's pens. There's like respect to our volunteers. There's like a 90-year-old woman in a wheelchair being like, this way. And then there's another person like kind of nodding off, being like, oh, yeah, you stand over there. It's like none of this feels precise. Doubt starts to creep in, being like, the wording for these initiatives are leading me a little bit. I'm going to vote for the orange man. Fuck all this.
I like the one that was about giving more powers to the sanitation department.
Because you're a sanitation denier. You were like, they don't exist, as heard on Cookies Hoops.
I have a different plan. Well, your plan is just giving an army of people shovels and having them do the work of the landlords.
No, that was your
I'm like,
plan.
no.
You said everyone's
That's
responsible.
your plan. You're the army of shovelers guy.
No, the city has an army of shovelers. But you were like, the people own the building.
Yeah, this is your plan.
Right, the sanitation department.
That's as it currently exists. That's the current
The
plan.
sanitation department, I think, should help out if like no one shovels something. They just should go through.
So you're in favor. So look, everyone's entitled to their own vote.
I'm
Andrew.
not voting for Joe
But
Biden.
where did you stand? Where did you stand on giving the sanitation workers in New York City more power? Did you say yes or no?
I refuse to vote in that initiative. Even if it favors orange people, I'm going to write in garbage plate number 1.
I said, you know what? I'm not voting to give expanded powers to the garbage men. I didn't know the information. I came in there ignorant. But I was like, I'm not going to allow them to become the Gestapo.
The garbage Gestapo?
What powers? That's what I'm saying. What powers were they talking about? Oh, cool. Yeah, I think the garbage men should have more. They should expand their powers. Great. They're the Stasi now. Good job.
The garbage is an interesting situation where I live now, which is kind of like a more subdued environment than where I used to live. And people put out good stuff. Like every Friday, there's like tables, there's good clothes. There is I saw a great blender, a Vitamix. And they were like, still works, kind of worn in, but good. You know, little sign, little post-it someone puts on it. And if I was a garbage person talking about the power of the garbage man, I'd be like, I don't want to take this and just chuck it into this garbage truck and destroy it. Someone should take this. I'm going to leave it. But nope, your job is to clear it all away, you know? So I'm like, ooh, someone should take this table. Maybe not enough people have seen it yet, but I don't want to just chuck it. But I guess they have to chuck it.
That's not what they were voting on.
No, I'm just talking about the powers of garbage people. Explain to us
So
what they
you
were.
want to expand their powers. I don't know what it was. That one, I like that. Like, garbage men they can decide whether or not something is too good to
They're
go to the dump.
gatekeepers, right? Or they could be like the Salvation Army, being like, 2 out of 25 items we'll take here, and then the other items we'll scrap. You know how people just dump clothing?
Yeah, they're kind of like Beacon's Closet. Like, okay, we can take this bag of coffee grinds and rotten eggs and things like that. We'll take that to the dump. But this couch, no, I'm sorry. That's going back upstairs. That's a fine couch.
Are you ready for a Trump presidency? Have you been following the polls? Do you believe in polls? Like, what's your download? What you got?
I have not been following.
That's an amazing response. Are you curious as to what's happening? And
Not really.
are you gonna vote?
I don't want Trump to become president. I already
I
voted.
voted on Saturday.
Submit a really
Trash vote.
half-assed ballot. I gotta
Thank
be
you for your
honest.
service. The bravery is off the charts.
Well, I wanted my vote to be logged, that I was willing to go to the
Listen,
polls.
I don't want someone to judge me for not voting. I'm just gonna submit a trash vote.
No, I don't feel. I'm not concerned about the judging part. I feel like I've made my position clear. I'm at peace many times over with how I voted. I'm just saying the ballot itself. I was flipping through it. I'm like, come on, give me some good stuff here. It was just
Yeah,
there was a couple of columns. It was like vote for 5 of these 5
all
people, and they
Democrats,
were in both the Democratic and the Republican columns going down. Like this is not the kind of ballot that I can really sink my teeth into, Andrew.
it is a potpourri of grievance politics. Whatever you're angry at, you'll find, right? And I'm angry about it a ton. I'm not saying I'm happy about it. And I think writing in a third a candidate that's not on the ballot is an important thing in American right. And obviously, game theory is not the primary focus of an action like that. But it I've never been happy with a president. I've never been happy with a politician. What it takes to be a politician is not like my favorite thing in the world. I prefer to be around people who complain about rent and make weird music and weird paintings. Like the politician world is not my world. Or basketball takes, like I don't care about Obama's top albums. So voting is never going to satisfy me. You almost have to suspend your own disbelief, whatever that disbelief may be, in order to vote. And if you don't suspend it, you vote for. I'm trying to think of the right band. The band Growing in New York City. I vote for Kevin Doria.
Do you like the early voting, just from a not the functional level, because we understand it makes it easier to vote, which is a good thing. Same with mail-in ballots. Great, more people voting, the better. I'm at my heart, Andrew, a believer in democracy. I'm not someone who's like, yeah, less people voting is good. I don't really care who you vote for. I just think
so. You have to say that plainly.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on the ballot who may not have a great belief in democracy. But my thing is, I do believe, personally, I'm greater than these people. I believe in democracy. So I do enjoy that there are multiple ways to vote, getting more people out. That's cool. I did like going to the voting booth on the day and sort of vibing it out. Like, ooh, seems like a low turnout over here in the weird Polish center or something like that. A lot of old people today. How does this bode?
Yeah. So you like when everyone had to do it at once for like a kind of a scene check.
Marathon vibes.
Right.
Marathon vibes. Yes. Like, polls were slow, a little concerned.
I don't like that, just because, sort of like New York City, I think the objective of New York City is to make housing affordable. The objective of a vote is to make everyone have the easiest time to vote. So I think it should be done on phones, technology, whatever. It should be done when you can. Make it a holiday. But a lot of people can't get to the voting booth and wait in line that long. I've waited in lines, as everyone else has, for upwards of half an hour. That's kind of hard when you're on the clock, when you have a job to go to, when you have kids. It's not easy. It's doable. So I love the early voting. I just waltzed in on Saturday, no pun intended, and got my voting done. It was easy, like there was 10 people in there. It was cool. I felt confident about it, and I think they should expand it. Like, have it more stations, longer time periods, make it easier to vote.
Wow. Yeah, not on the same page. It's like, I disagree. More.
No, I like the scene though.
More grandfather clauses.
But I see your point. It's cool to experience this with your community, right? This is why I like to take the subway instead of an Uber.
Yeah.
This is where I live. These are the people I live with. It's nice to be around them. So I get that.
Also, I'm sure if you wanted that vibe, you could go tomorrow and there'll be more of
Exactly.
it than
Are you
going in win over a 2 week
are you
period.
gonna go to a party? Are you gonna watch as this shit goes down? I mean, we won't know anything until a few days later, weeks. But are you gonna are you gonna make it a social thing?
I remember going to Bowery Hotel to some party. Um, I guess this would have been 8 years ago when Trump won. That was a insane vibe. Everyone showed up like, yeah, Hillary's gonna win. Like, no one really loves her or anything, but like, yeah, we're gonna have some drinks. Okay, Trump lost, and it was just this like chilling effect would be the wrong way of putting it. No one was really chilling. It just became like the most disastrous party with people just getting hammered, a couple people crying in the corners. Like the vibes, Andrew, were a little bit off.
A few days ago, someone was like, "Yo, I got an extra ticket to Game 5 at Yankee Stadium, World Series, man. Let's go." And I'm like, "Fuck no. That's going to be the saddest place on the planet." And I don't really care about who wins. I'm a Yankees fan. I don't want to be around that many miserable people. They may win, and it may not be like that. But to your point, I remember when your boy John Kerry lost, I watched at least two of my friends in Chelsea like have an emotional breakdown because they had worked so hard on that campaign and they were just like distraught. Started showing signs where it's just like, hey, we need to take this person off the floor and like make sure they're okay because it's important, right? And people really care about this, and I love all those things. Fuck, I'm with you. I don't want to be in any room just in case. I think Kamala Harris is going to have an easy time with this election, but I don't want to risk it. If it's 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, I am not risking that misery.
Yeah, I have some friends like, hey, what are we doing for it? I'm like,
Fuck that.
What do you want to happen? What do you want as the result here? Like, are you invested in
Joe
the result of
Biden
this?
won. Dietrich's like, fuck yeah.
Yes. I'm like, are you gonna wear like your, Harris Walls hat?
Of course
like,
you are. You got to wear the band shirt into the show.
I'm like, what's our cynicism level here? Are we going in like rooting for Harris Walls, and if they lose, we're gonna be cheerful? Like, where? I just mean, give me your vibe, because I'm going in here very cynical and like not invested in the outcome. So unless you want that energy from me, maybe we shouldn't go to this event.
Listen, I'm gonna suck to be around. So are you sure you want this smoke?
Well, I'm not going to suck to be around. I'm neutral. I mean, I'm not neutral. I don't want Trump to win, but I'm just saying, look, if I'm a protest voter, Andrew.
Yeah, I hear that. And then you're a protest party goer. You're like, this party sucks. All of you are wrong. I am not with it. Because if Trump won, you'd be like, whatever.
I plan on being. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no real upside or downside with me. If Harris Walls wins, like, cool, yeah, I prefer her to be president, given these options. If Trump wins, I'm not gonna point and laugh. Like, I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it depends on the type of party that you're going to. Not all parties are created equal. If you're around people who like to point and laugh, maybe not the one. If you're around people who don't care, maybe the one. I don't enjoy watching sports events with anybody, maybe except yourself, because I don't care that much. I do and I don't. Making the night bad is like the worst outcome. So I like to be away from those kings and queens.
I feel like watching a game that I care about, I'm annoyed on a play-by-play basis. Like,
I've seen some Celtics victories with you. I know the vibes.
But right, I'm
yeah, totally.
Tobias,
I do the same thing. I'm just like, ooh.
As soon as the game ends, I don't care anymore.
It's time to bro down. It's time to just do something else.
I can't stay mad at the result of a game more than 5 minutes after the outcome. Like, if they'd won that, they may have gone on to win the finals. Like, anyway.
Listen, I'm dripping in virtue signaling. I am not above virtue signaling. I will just be like, I'm right. I'm ethical. But when it comes to sports, I can't really find my lane. So I'm not above the fray. Maybe I just don't have that dog.
That can't be the case.
It's an impossibility.
I'm sure that you have that dog.
Well,
as someone who's known you a long time, I feel like we lost our way as a society when the dog X-ray meme sort of vanished from a public site. We need to bring that back.
That was a great one.
The death of the dog.
Well, memes are kind of dead anyway, right? Like, we're post meme now. If someone drops a good meme, obviously great, but we're not like celebrating them in the same way we did with the crying Jordan.
One thing I have to say that I agree with Gen Z on is that they're anti-GIF or GIF, as you might call it.
Right? As a reply.
They hate it. They think it's real boomer shit. Kind of with that. I don't love the video element.
Can you explain more?
Image, fine.
Yeah.
Text-based, fine. I don't know. I'm just saying I feel like when Instagram added them as responses, I'm like, ooh, this sucks. You now have more video beneath as a response to the video. I'm like, don't like it. It feels like it clogs things up.
Is this a skill issue or a thing issue? Because sometimes they're hilarious, right?
But I think this ties back into what you're saying for the most part. It's like if someone's using a meme we've already seen, again, it doesn't have the novelty of it. So it's like, oh, that's an appropriate placement for that meme, except that we've already seen it. So it really could just be a thumbnail. Like it could be an image. It could be a text. You don't actually need to show the cartoon of like the Spider-Man meme. You can just say Spider-Man meme.
Yeah. It's hard to find a fire reply anywhere. I get trapped into looking at replies a lot. There's no real good ones. It's just kind of an echo.
That's what Elon has stolen from us, Andrew.
Elon kind of like, he's interesting. People hate on Twitter so much and X. I'm just like, was it that good before? Yeah.
No, I don't think it was that good, but I will say that it is absolutely worse, though. And I'm not even getting into the whole, like, for you, and it's just, like, MAGA shit, or the kind of vile stuff that gets promoted, the kind of shitty advertisements have. To me, it's the ruining of the reply. That to me is the greatest crime that he has committed. I don't care about the attempts for subscriptions. I don't care about Grok harvesting your tweets for
Baby
AI.
Grok.
You took away funny replies.
Yeah, and those people may have grown up. You know, like they may be 30, 40, 50. I don't know what constitutes aging out of being a reply guy. I think it's sort of like, where did streetwear go wrong? I'm like, oh, it didn't really go wrong as much as the people just became adults. And you don't wait in line for dunks anymore or T-shirts.
Well, I just think it's because the subscribers with the blue checks are now elevated in where you read them. So if there's a lot of people on a popular post, there may be 50. It's not worth scrolling through 50 to 100 imbeciles with unfunny replies to find the one that might be funny. It's not worth the excavation.
If there's over 20 replies, it's trash, right? If you are a user that garners a chorus of voices, it's not going to be funny or entertaining. If you see 4 or 5 replies, it might be amazing. I don't know.
But it used to be that those ones would get elevated that because of likes. If something was legitimately funny, it would be bounced all the way to the top, and now it just doesn't seem the case. No. But
whatever. Yeah,
old
who
news.
Cares? I want to talk about something new. MF Doom and the Avant-Garde. You brought this to me. Let's go.
I have a new topic. MF Doom. So I saw a discussion on X, as we were just discussing, about MF Doom. And there's been a few takes, and one was saying, hey, are we doing with MF Doom what we did to Biggie? Which is another idea to unpack, and I haven't even wrapped my mind around what that entails. But one was about underground rap and MF Doom. And they were saying, did New York even support MF Doom? I don't think they did. Like, New York wasn't even checking for MF Doom like that. I'm like, well, that's a weird way of describing, say, a subculture. That MF Doom was beloved, selling out shows at Wetlands and places like that. Everyone loved him. But if New York is a larger entity, if he wasn't on Hot 97, then New York wasn't checking for him. I'm like, this is so wrong, but I kind of appreciate this idea. Like, so anything artsy, people were just not checking for, man.
It's. Do you know how old this person was who said this?
They were giving 30s.
So maybe Mrs.
It wasn't I was there. It wasn't I was there.
Okay,
energy.
right, because that would age him out of being there. And I love it because it's a 90s ass debate about like ownership over what people are fans of, what people appreciate. It's just like, no, I'm the real head here, like real hip hop. Instead of where most of us are now, which is like fandom is a flat circle, right? And no record pun there, but it, you walk through, he obviously passed away recently, and you walk through areas in Brooklyn, and right after you see a Biggie mural on St. James Place, you'll be on Fulton and you'll see an MF Doom mural. Or Broadway, there's one on Broadway beneath the bridge, like in Bed-Stuy. And it occurred to me, I had the same feeling when your boy, who I'm forgetting his name, the famous guy who sat next to all the basketball players on the sidelines. What's his name? Who died anyway? Jeez.
Pete Davidson.
No. Who never had a hit, but somehow in his death became one of the most popular dudes. Yeah, what's his name?
Yeah, I know.
Well, to that point.
Yeah, this is
right.
sad.
Yeah, this is sad. I haven't thought about him in a while, but his murals are everywhere in New York. I'm like, these aren't necessarily New Yorkers, right? But what that person is talking about, I can really relate to, because it's like trying to put words to someone's artwork and death and the way we remember it, the way librarians kind of keep records of things. And they are challenging the way we're preserving this idea of MF Doom and the avant-garde. It's like, you guys didn't love Jim Jones enough. I'm like, well, he had a hit, but maybe we didn't. I love, maybe put it this way, I love artworks that keep on living. And in death, MF Doom's character, persona, and songs are still alive. And I'm not talking about people play them. I'm talking about they're transforming still. What was it? Was it good? Was it bad? Did you misinterpret it? Or was it ahead of its time? That's kind of cool.
But also with someone like Nipsey Hussle.
That's who I was thinking.
You're referring
Jesus,
to.
thank you. I would never have thought of that.
When Scars had a mural up,
yeah, they still
for
do.
Nipsey Hussle, I was like, is it still by the one that's now
Yep,
the sushi
still
place?
up. On the gate.
But I was like, okay, all right, you were checking for him. Respect. You were into him as a rapper. I would not say New York really was. But also, he was not a New York underground hero. He was a L.A. folk hero. He was popular in L.A. When someone's talking about artists from New York City or people who are, in subcultures, the idea that New York wasn't really checking for them, I'm like, but if the scene that they're in loves them, then New York is absolutely checking for them. Just because someone who is outside of that scene is unaware of them, that doesn't mean the city in general is not checking for them. This applies to art, this applies to food. if you were talking about, I don't know, what's his name? Dufresne Wiley? Is that his name?
Yeah, amazing. I've
Wiley
never
Dufresne,
seen it
yeah, yeah.
reversed like that. I mean, in this on this,
I knew Dufresne was involved somewhere.
I've been beefing about him
But-
lately too.
But he was someone who was incredibly well known and influential within the food world. But I would not be like, oh yeah, like New York City wasn't fucking with Wiley Dufresne.
Love this restaurant. Change. I say I've been thinking about him just because of pizza. We'll get to pizza in a second, as we always do. But like, you know, you take Scars for example. You brought up Scars, which is a great visual because in the old room you walked in, wood paneling, John Starks poster, dunking on the Bulls. You had a painting of, I believe, Gucci Mane, and then you had all these signifiers of like maybe New York adjacent, maybe rap fandom stuff. It was kind of like a mixed bag. So like, I'm not. I've always been curious where the Nipsey Hussle fan allegiance lied, and maybe we could just ask. It's like, oh, he was a kind of a silent investor in this place, so we loved him quite a bit, or maybe you put it up just to acknowledge a certain clientele. But there's also
Well, Nipsey Hussle also stood for something.
yeah, community guy.
You know, versus community guy, and what he represented in LA was not necessarily what he represented here from a musical standpoint, but I do think that he represented something that translated, even if musically,
problem with him.
I don't know a lot of people who were necessarily listening to his music.
And MF Doom was apolitical in that way, right? Wonderful artist, mysterious artist, a pleasure. Like if you were a casual fan, awesome visual, funny. If you were a head, intense lyrics that you can dig through endlessly. Really benefited from some great album covers that are reproduced in paint easily, cartoons. That painter is kind of awesome. I believe it's from San Francisco. And his iconography works. And Death kind of suits him in a way that suited Biggie, where in Death we get to put a bow on something, and it is a closed circuit, and it's preserved. So we were both around during the MF Doom time. He was well celebrated, but this is a question of the avant-garde, right? If the avant-garde hits Hot 97, it ceases to be the thing that it is. And it translates to basketball talk, which we'll have an hour too. But I tease Growing, right? That band Growing, because they're playing tonight on Monday in the basement of Artist Space in a project called A Basement that started at Max Fish. And Growing was a well-loved band within our community. There are homies, Joe DiNardo, Kevin Doria, and they split up for a while geographically, but come together sometimes. And tonight will be a gathering of the avant-garde heads as I remember it in the early aughts, which is awesome. But like, it kind of functions as its own thing. If they were playing Webster Hall or the Paramount Theater, it would cease to be the thing. So if people are asking why didn't we prop MF Doom to a broader audience, it's because he wasn't the thing.
Yeah, I also remember going to see him at Wetlands, and it was absolutely mobbed, and it was
very
so hot in there.
popular.
He performed without his mask. I remember going to Adult Swim holiday party, and the secret guest they brought out was MF Doom, and people were excited. The idea of him not being popular never struck me as being under consideration. He was extremely popular.
Is this a
He wasn't necessarily on Hot 97, but he was extremely popular.
This is a discussion that we always have of like the marginalization of the middle class of culture, right? Like MF Doom has a tougher time navigating 2024 as he did in 2004 because I believe through streaming, through money, either he's elevated to a money making situation via the internet, or he remains underground. But he can't be in the middle because Wetlands doesn't exist anymore. These rooms don't exist. Adult Swim parties don't exist anymore. Adult Swim does it. Is it over? Like this whole funnel is gone.
I'm not declaring MF Doom a a pioneer of underground rap, because underground rap existed forever and rap was underground originally and so on. But thinking about him as this sort of internet figure, viral, not getting radio play, getting tons of shows, in some ways that was kind of like, whether it's NBA Youngboy or whoever, it is like a model that became
Travis
predominant.
Scott, right? He was in those rooms with MF Doom.
It's like, okay, if you're not on the radio at first, but you're at events, you're doing shows, everyone knows you. You have this huge international fan base because of the internet. You have things that are like established classics, but you are 100% underground. And I feel like when it was like ASAP Mob dropped, or ASAP Rocky, it's like, oh, we all know this. This guy's gonna get signed. This is going to work. It was different, but we all saw his like Purple Swag video. We're all on the same page. This is cool. These guys look cool. The song sounds cool. This is a extremely handsome, charismatic guy. He's going to be a rap star.
Mm-hmm.
But that was before it was ever on the radio.
And that's relevant now, right? Because we think he delayed his album again. I think this weekend, people who pre-ordered his album got their money back. And it's like, is he ever going to do this? I'm like,
no.
I'm like, who really cares about Rocky's music at this point? He's kind of transcended songs where he could just be like Rihanna and float through as like a fashion celebrity or just a celebrity. And it drives me to the same conclusion, which is like, there was a place for his music to exist at one point that's no longer there. And maybe his team is smart enough to be like, we don't need to prioritize this anymore. Because you are not, respect to ASAP Rocky, you are not a good enough musician to be a chart topper at this point. And you don't want to come off as underground because your profile is too big to be an underground dude. We don't have to really, if you're not happy with the album, we don't have to push it through. And Tyler the Creator is another example where he put out his album. He gets pushed to selling out arenas now. And I'm like, he is also not that good. And he's having growing pains. I mean, he's great, but to me he's not as talented as Earl, who is truly underground. And Tyler gets propped up to a point where it's like, should you be doing the Super Bowl? I'm like, that might not be the right thing for him. It's hard for me to tell, but as a fan, I'm like, the place where he would have really flourished just doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, looking at that whole cast of characters, and you have some of them who were supposed to be stars and weren't, some that are stars that we never believed would be, like Travis Scott.
He was not that good for a while. He's okay.
Well, also he was just performing at every party in New York, like after Rodeo came out. Yeah,
I mean, I like him.
But I was going to say, but even outside of rap music, when you get into, say, art, that middle ground that, let's say, Rocky occupies is certainly familiar, where it's like, well, you've sold some big paintings, so you're not a underground painter, but also no one's willing to give you that money for those paintings anymore. So you're stuck in this little woozy, nebulous area where you want to work, but the market isn't the same. But you also can't go back to being someone doing tiny little shows at, like, I don't know, the Journal or whatever. I just mean,
sure.
What's that little gallery?
The Journal, whatever.
I'm saying a small gallery. You can't do something like that because you've sold paintings for hundreds of thousands of dollars in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a market issue, and like where I like to daydream is like the market behaves in the way kind of like creative people who do stuff behave. It's intertwined, but you can apply the same principles. And to exist, to create something is a talent. To know where that thing exists is another talent. And they shouldn't overlap too much, I think. It's ASAP's Rocky's job to put out into the world what he wants to do. And if there's a place for it, cool. If there's not, like, this is where we come in and we talk about it. And this is what the MF Doom critic is saying. It's like, did you guys frame him wrong? Did the gatekeepers mess this guy up? Which is an awesome conversation. I wish we still had him. It would proliferate bars this conversation in the 90s and aughts, and we don't really talk about it anymore. But because maybe it's not interesting. But I do think the marginalizing of the middle class of art is not necessarily producing the results I personally want, which is like a brisk underground. It's kind of all focused at the top. And I think this has a lot to do with money, COVID, rent, the cost of technology, all these things. We cannot just talk about succeeding within a technological world as an artist without talking about the cost that goes into that.
I do want to move on to something else, but I was thinking a little bit about the point that we sort of elided earlier, talking about MF Doom being bigified, or this idea that Biggie, who said all types of crazy, fucked up stuff and was like the gnarliest rapper, he was amazing. I mean, he was amazing.
He was a misogynist. He was a murderer.
He's a goat.
Yeah, all these personas.
Great. I mean, fantastic. But turning him into the pudgy guy who's like, it was all a dream. And it's like, and that's who he is now. Just like, he's just the fat guy who was like, said, spread love, it's the Brooklyn way. And that's like your coffee shop's identity. And Doom is more interesting though, because he was subversive. He was super paranoid. He had a clear orthodoxy on the world that was dark and cynical and funny. And he talked about street stuff. I think he went to jail. He was immersed in slang. A lot of it was very impenetrable to someone who didn't know places in New York, didn't know New York slang, didn't know drugs or gun slang. And it's like, he's the guy with the funny mask. Like, but that's not what made Doom amazing. That's what gave him a novelty and maybe separated him from other underground rappers. But what made him amazing was that he was a genius at putting words together and extremely dark and really funny. So I kind of do get this idea that they're just turning him into like the funny guy with a mask.
I mean,
like he's a cartoon character, but he also kind of asked for
it. I mean, his collaborator Madlib, I love Quasimodo. You know, like this whole scene. We have to talk about like Kool Keith, right? And his kind of reemergence during like the late 90s and Dr. Octagon, and this mystery of who are these artists? What are they doing? What are they revealing? This is pre-internet, right? So we were getting these Dr. Octagon records to be like, I know this rapper. He's back. This is incredible, but it's like hard to get. Pushead did the art and Moax put it out. And there's two different versions. And who is he? Is it someone who's writing for him? And it was delightful as a fan because they felt like puzzles. And I think Doom kind of entered that world a little bit too, because he was a fan, a comic book fan pleaser. A lot of references to the Fantastic Four, obviously. A lot of wordplay about nerdy stuff that kind of has tentacles into a different world than Biggie was trying to identify, right? Biggie was trying to identify street stuff, drug stuff, pop stuff, struggle. Doom was talking about like reclusive nerds, which was pretty amazing.
I agree. Speaking of reclusive
I was
nerds,
trying so hard for that. Ugh,
I mean, you threw the
yeah, I
lob.
tried.
I was I was I was just there to catch it. Chrissy's Pizza
That's right.
is now the talk of Greenpoint.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I am hard up for this pizza, man, and you ate it.
So on Halloween, me and a couple buddies grabbed two pizzas from Chrissy's, and we went early in the day on a weekday. I mean, it was Halloween, so there was a lot of people around, but it wasn't really pizza time
Can you
yet. It
before
was
you
on
go
the
into
early
the
side.
details, can you describe what Chrissy's is?
So Chrissy's is a viral is not quite the right word,
It
but
works.
it's sort of
on.
viral. It was a guy who started making pizzas in his apartment in the oven during the pandemic. It had a recipe. This is maybe not true, but this was told to me from a guy in Miami who is like a super
I think
pizza
he talks
nerd.
about this.
He started making them with this recipe as the platonic ideal of the New York slice. It gets rave reviews from the few people who can get their hands on
Let
this.
me interject
this,
here. Hardcore,
you know.
day one, New York City hardcore, covered in tattoos, punk iconography, flyers, chummy with Brooks Headley, the genius behind Superiority Burger. So this is the punk scene.
Right. And they opened a brick and mortar on the other side of McGinnis from everything else. As far as I can really think, nothing else has really opened on the side of McGinnis that was intended to be desirable. There's some stuff that's opened up, but this is the first thing that this side of McGinnis has had where people will go there. Like, yeah, people go to Palace, people go to Goldie's, to a bar, but this is a destination. It's never had destination food at any point in history that I can come up with. So go by there, 40 people, 50 people, 75 people, 100 people queuing up. Here's what you need to know if you want to go to Chrissy's. There's always going to be a 20, 25 minute wait because they got to make the pizza. So you're getting your pizza fresh out of the oven. If you have a special, whatever it could be, it's coming out of the oven. They're making whole pies, no slices. You're getting it fresh out. And there's always going to be that 20-minute wait as if you're in a restaurant. Now, the problem here, if you are someone who likes eating at tables, is that it's only to go. So if you don't live in Greenpoint, you're confronted by either eating over a garbage can, eating while sitting on a bench, or maybe trying to find a bar or a park that you can go somewhere and probably sit on a bench or a chair there. So walking around on the weekend in Greenpoint, there's just Chrissy's pizza boxes like littering the streets. Not in like people are just throwing them on the ground, but every trash can has like 4 pizza boxes sitting next to it. But anyway, what you want to know is fucking good.
Before we get into that review, your Barstool review, I feel like I have to colorize what this pizza and its marketing was, right? Instagram, as you said, making pizzas in his oven, but like detailed Instagram posts of like the cheese he buys, how he's making the dough, the oven he uses. He names the oven. It becomes like a really intimate kind of relationship with this pizza guy early on when the pandemic was happening. And you could DM him and he'd bring you down a pizza. And it started gaining traction as a lovely story, but also incredible pizza. And he leaned into it. He was just like, these are my friends. This is my favorite pie. This reminds me of my father. It was a deeply warm place to be, his account, especially if you're a fan of pizza and a fan of DIY stuff and hardcore and New York City. And then he becomes elusive.
It's real quo bait.
Yeah, exactly. Yo, it was check. It was my ballot. But like, and then he kind of transforms. The attention he gets kind of fatigues him. And he's like, hey, I'm going to take a break. I'm tired. You guys sell out my pizzas, 20 pies in a minute. And everyone's mad because they can't order more than one pie. Everyone gets their orders mixed up. I'm gonna take a break. And he takes a break. He comes back and he's like, well, these are my thoughts about my pizza. And he becomes like this discontent, this malcontent on Instagram. Just like, I didn't want this attention. You guys, I'm grateful for you, but this is not what I wanted to do. This is not, my love of pizza is being lost here. And he takes over Brooks's place on in St. Mark's, and Portnoy goes there, and it blows up. Barstool. And Portnoy has a tough time getting this pizza. And Portnoy's usually like the guy cool guying his pizza spots because pizza nerds are just cooks. But this time, you could tell Portnoy's kind of like intimidated. You know, it's like, can I get one? Can I meet him? They're like, no, you can't. You can have one, but you can't meet him. And he just waves from the back, being like, yeah, fuck off. Did you like it? Cool. Go away now, you know? And Portnoy's like, whoa, you don't want to talk to me? Okay, I'm going to find someone who does. And he gives away the pizza, and it's kind of a lovely scene. But he opens up this spot. He announces this spot, and he's just like, fine, I'll do it. It's coming. I don't want this attention. I'm going to go out into Dietrichville, where it's kind of off the beaten path, right? To your point. It's not in the East Village. It's not accessible. You have to go to Greenpoint. A lovely place, but kind of hard to get through via train. And here he is. A depressed, sad pizza man, hawking pizzas in Greenpoint. And everyone loves them, and you can't even kind of get them easily. It's a new New York City character to me. I've never seen the sad pizza celebrity.
When we were sitting outside of a bar with 2 boxes stacked up, 10 people probably approached us. That's Chrissy's?
Yep.
Oh, how is it? What's up? How long did it take?
Which one did you get?
It was just
Paint
like
me the picture. I'm sweating over here.
So we got 2 pies, one plain, regular, standard. You know, you got to know the baseline, and one that was like a spicy ricotta.
God damn, you didn't get
What'd it
you didn't
go?
get his signature, the sausage and hot peppers. That's his favorite pie.
I got to be honest with you. I got there late, so the orders had already been placed. So I was there getting pizza valor.
You were
and
the
trying
pizza sidebar,
but I didn't
man.
actually wait in the line.
You didn't do the work.
I sidled. I was invited. I sidled though.
That's fair.
I definitely.
That's
I mean,
fair.
I was
Whatever. I'm just
was
busting
told
your
to
chops
sidle.
over here.
But I would like to try that one. I thought the crust was fantastic. How do you describe it? Crispy, yet has that leathery texture
I'm with
that you're
you.
looking for.
Take
It
me along
has
this
a-
ride. Yep.
Has managed to maintain its integrity for like an hour just sitting outside too. It didn't become soft. It didn't almost steam in its own box in that way.
Are you a reheat
I
nerd?
thought crust was great.
Do you believe in the true New York slice has to be reheated?
I like a reheated slice.
It does different, like,
I'm not a believer in that. Yeah, I like it. I'm into it, but I don't think it needs that. And this is a good evidence to
Very
the
cool.
contrary, because it's fresh out and it's coming out crunchy, a little bit charred, some bubbles breaking on it, but still 2 slices is kind of enough. I mean, granted, of course we kept going,
Yep.
but they're substantial.
Yes.
They're not, it's not hyper thin. It's not,
I believe he
it's-
cuts it into
the fact
6
that it's-
slices, not 8, right? He does the 6 slice cut,
I think you're right. Yeah.
I believe. Online he did.
Can't confirm or deny.
Come on.
We had 2 pies and we ended up sharing with people, and other friends showed up. So like 5
Thanks
people
for the
ate
phone
it.
call. That was
So
cool.
I can't remember what the math was. I was just
I
sending
know
photos
you
of
were,
it.
and I was just like, excuse me.
Well, it's hard to get a leg up on the pizza lord himself. You know,
No.
you gotta revel in it
I'm
when
just
you
hungry.
can. So what I'm saying is highly recommend, but I guess I have to go back for this signature pie. My advice for those people who want to get it is weekday early side. You're still going to wait 20 minutes, but you avoid like that wild queue.
I love this story and this idea of this new character. Like, just sad.
The pizza sidler, yes, that's
Yeah.
me.
Oh, yeah. The pizza
my bad,
sidler.
my
Oh,
bad.
come on. We know a pizza sidler or two.
It's a new guy. We've never had the
What is
pizza
it? Someone
sidler
who's
before. What's next? A beer
yanking
sidler?
slices? Yeah, I mean,
Someone who pulls up next to you at the bar and asks for a beer while you're getting one? I've never heard of this new
because
character.
I mean, we have Dafara, right? Like the old man cutting basil. There's that character. My number one slice right now, Baby Luke's Lucali. He's like Baby Luke's round. Incredible. But he's a character we know, just like a neighborhood hero, a friendly man, someone who hosts the entire Nets team, walking distance from the practice arena. Jay-Z friend of. This guy, Chrissy, he's like he has that punk skepticism that we all are familiar with as New Yorkers. And it kind of the irony is like he is producing food that is so easily understood and so populist that everyone can't get enough, and he's not being difficult at all other than its delivery system. Because what I've heard from everyone like yourself is the pizza comes and it's undeniable. It's here to please. The crust is great. The cheese is distributed great. He uses the good cheese, not even like the most expensive, just the best.
I would say sauce, less sweet than say Scars, I think.
Yeah. And so I think the two stories fighting against each other is like so delightful to me. It's like this kind of understated perfection in a New York slice versus a disgruntled, sad, aging punk. Incredible, right? It's like,
Does this
this is like my life.
I was going to try to pivot to basketball.
Let's-
Like, is this describing Giannis versus Doc Rivers?
Well, I kind of wanted to pivot to basketball because a new character like this making pizza, delighting everybody, but kind of seasoned by his own tears of time and age and disappointment is an anxiety into a character I've never seen on the basketball court in my NBA life, which is Anthony Edwards kind of messing with us as we're celebrating him. Do you know what I mean?
Tell me more, because I think we've known of the troll character with Joel Embiid, because we're going to talk about him and his
Media snafu.
experiences with some local journalists. Yeah, so what do you mean by this, as opposed to like
Yes.
Joe, who was like telling jokes and things like that?
Joe is a recognizable character to me. Somebody who is a troll, enjoys messing with the media. This language starts with Dennis Rodman, and goes along the lines of someone who is removing the wall between the media, the fan experience, and the player. Just being like, fuck you, this is not important, whatever. Anthony Edwards has none of that skepticism. It is like the true Zoomer player that I have yet to see, which is like, I care just enough to answer a question with fuck 'em. And I'm like, oh, there's a media savvy there that I have not seen. There's a kind of laissez-faire kind of quality where Joel Embiid cares too much, and that's why I love him. He cries. He defends his honor. Anthony Edwards is like, fuck what you think, kind of. Like, I just don't care about anything. But I'm here for you because I'm an entertainer. But my skepticism is lower because maybe he understands what he is better.
Well, this reminds me of conversations we've had in the past about LeBron, where LeBron had to go back to Cleveland because he cares. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, LeBron really cares. And he always has. And there's nothing wrong with caring. This is not presenting it as a bad thing. I want to eat Chrissy's
pizza. Yes.
But when LeBron went to Miami and he became a villain, he was like, I can lean into this, but he couldn't, because that's not who LeBron is. And part of that is his greater ambitions to be the greatest of all time, and it's harder to do that if you're reviled And his return to Cleveland was what validated him in the eyes of many, many people. He went back and atoned for leaving Cleveland and won them
Virtue
their title.
signaling, right?
And now it was fair to put him in that conversation. And he knew that, and he was correct. When he went back to Cleveland, he knew he had to do that because that was the only thing that would satisfy a certain contingency of the, cognoscenti who decides who's the GOAT. He did that. And I think with Ant, we're still figuring out what he cares about. And, these guys are so young. What is this, his fifth season or something like that? And he's 23. I mean, he's still a kid. This is his fourth or fifth year. And we'll see what happens when he's 27. And he starts looking at the timeline. It's like, well, don't I have 6 more years? I haven't been to a finals yet. What do I care about? What do I care about when I leave? But the energy now, that's 23-year-old energy. Yeah. And I like seeing that from him versus Wemby being 20 years old and being like,
people don't work hard enough.
Guys aren't working hard.
You guys
enough
aren't
out
7'6"
right,
like
dude,
me.
Then why aren't you making your threes?
I mean,
why are you shooting 27% from 3? Why? You just don't want to make them enough?
To be clear, when I say Anthony Edwards is a new character to me, it's not like overt. We've known flippant young players before, but my spidey sense is tingling, and it's just like he's not mad. He's not poking fun at the fans. He's not antagonizing the media, even when he's like, fuck them. He's in it with us, and he's just like, all right, I'm gonna wear these funny sunglasses, these Oakleys during this interview and give you funny answers, but I am not demeaning. I am not trying to make this difficult for anybody. I kind of just want to be myself, and that self I have not really seen within the margins, which is like kind of like the joy of basketball. It is a joyful presence, right?
Wow.
Isn't Anthony Edwards like a joy to listen to?
Of course. I mean, his personality is what makes him extremely compelling, especially when attached to the kind of just phenomenal, explosive athleticism he has. And even as someone who is kind of skeptical about how great he is as a player, he's very good. And this year he's making a leap to being
top 20 player,
efficient, right? Yeah, an efficient high volume scorer. In the past, he was not that efficient and not that high volume either. But in Cat's absence, he's averaging 28 a game at RJ Barrett-esque, efficiency. I think 59%, which is
all-star RJ Barrett.
Not amazing, but that he's basically putting up Tatum-ish numbers. And we know that's a good scorer, but it's not upper echelon. It's not the highest volume. But again, he is finally doing that, which is a validation of being a real star. Okay, you're among the league leaders, and you're doing it at what can only be described as like a good level, you're doing this well.
And
the rest of the stuff isn't there.
And before I give him too many flowers, I have to mention, like, he said some bad things about people that didn't deserve it, and he's apologized. So I'm not saying like he speaks with joy all the time. Like, that was kind of a bummer and despicable, but young people are weird, and he's figuring out the world in front of our eyes, and I don't know. But
I didn't find that to be a emblematic of like what's in his soul. That was just,
I don't know. Yeah.
Young.
Language kind of doesn't really transmute through generations as easily as we want to.
I mean, and he apologized for it.
Totally. So we're the better people because we forgive him. So I'm happy to be on that moral high ground. But as the season gets into its kind of marathon stages, it's like Edwards and the Wolves are interesting to me. The Wolves have 2 players I love, Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Edwards hasn't really elevated himself to like the discussions of most valuable player. I agree with you. He's in that Tatum, Desmond Bane kind of tier, an awesome tier. I don't mean to throw shade. I think Bane is an awesome player, but like a tier above John Morant, like really great players.
But also Tatum has been better than his typical tier this
Yeah,
year.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm just saying credit where it's due. We're not saying he is on this year's Tatum, and we'll see how if Tatum can maintain his volume and efficiency and those kind of things. He is doing what Tatum has typically done.
And, like we kind of touched on it last episode, but I like the worm turning on the idea of the unitasking scorer, maybe. It's just like, all right, let's go. There was criticism Anthony Edwards received for taking too many threes, and that's where the fuck 'em thing came out. It's like, what do you say to your critics when they say you're settling for threes too much? It's like, fuck it. I'm like, that's fun because now, the World Series ended and there's been debate as to like what math has done to baseball and what math has done to sports in general. And should we change the 3-point rules in the NBA? And I'm like, Anthony Edwards not doing the Jordan originalist thing, like the dog, I do everything. I work hard. He's just like, I just feel like shooting threes for a while. That's kind of cool.
Well, yeah, that's funny because he would be a prime contender for someone who would say, look, I don't like doing it, but that's what the math says. So, if my coach and team says that I got to space the floor and get up 15 threes a game, well, I got to do it. Because that's what people say. I prefer fuck him.
Fuck him, right? Like, he doesn't have to wax poetic, a 90s idea. I'm stuck in the 90s. But, like, he doesn't have to kind of give us that anymore. It's been said. So we can move on to his personality. But, yeah, I don't know. I like him shooting threes. I have not checked his efficiency recently. But, like...
It's been fantastic. He's shooting like 43% from three. He's been great.
Keep on shooting.
You should be take more.
Yeah. I mean, cool. I would like him to be the MVP of the league, but I kind of didn't love him in the draft. I was like, he's definitely a top 7 pick, but I thought he was like, his ceiling was kind of understood, and nothing about his career yet has changed my mind on that. That said, franchise player for a great team.
Yeah, my critique of Anthony Edwards is not because I don't like him. I think he's awesome. Mm-hmm. I just feel as a basketball player, he's made a little bit of a leap this year, and it really mostly shows how far he had to go between what he's been in the past and being a true, like, bona fide superstar. He's made the jump to being a bona fide really good scorer, and that's a great start.
Incredible.
But he just has to become a better passer. He has to become better at taking an offense and just saying, I can create depending on what you give me. It's not just, okay, I just have to go out there, and if I'm off, then we lose. Mm-hmm. Like, can you just conjure an offense? And that's what's been cool about watching James Harden just go out there and say, like, you know what I do, man? I'm James Harden. I'm the system.
Yeah.
And he is.
And goodness in basketball isn't like a straight curve or a line, right? It's like, to be as good as the top dogs, like, they're off the chart, literally, if you want to do a plot chart. Like, you want to be good as Doncic and SGA, this is the whole Tatum conceit. It's like, if you mention Tatum with these great players, like, we're doing greatness a disservice here, because it is not arithmetic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's just like, there's players who are 5s and then players who are 10s, and that gap is not occupied by anybody.
Well, and part of this is the econometric system that the NBA employs, where for the most part, a top 1 player or a top 5 player makes the same money as a top 30 player.
Right.
And that's why it is so debilitating when you're spending that money on a top 30 player.
I mean, Karl Anthony Towns, but yeah, right. There's different ways to look at a player: points per game, contract, MVP votes, championships. But it's hard. All those examples are hard to plot in a flat way. It just jumps around too much. So, like, the difference between James Harden this year and James Harden last year is like it's not a progression. It's just a wacko situation. He is
Well,
unbelievable.
yeah. I mean, well, part of it also is that, and this is going to take us to the Bucks in a second. What are you paying someone for? Are you paying them for their full contributions? Are you paying them for part of it? Are you paying them for what they're best at? Or are you paying them for what they're not as good at? Right? And I think James Harden was a good example of that, where in Philly, you're like, well, he's not scoring 30 a game. I'm like, this is true, but you're paying Joel Embiid to give you 35 points a game. That's his job. James Harden's job is to lead the league in assists and make sure that whenever he's on the court without Joel Embiid, he goes back to the Houston version of him temporarily. And that wasn't good enough for people. Like, he's washed. He's not scoring 30 and putting up 15, like, but that's not who he is. So the Clippers getting him at a bit of a discount and then having all these terrible injuries and then Paul George leaving the city, all of a sudden you're getting what James Harden is supposed to be paid for at a discount, which is kind of the opposite of how it typically works. And the reason I'm bringing this up is like Dame Lillard, where if he's in Portland, he's the system. You're running the offense through Dame Lillard. But when you put him in Milwaukee, well, he doesn't have the same role because he's sharing the court with Giannis. So now you're paying Dame Lillard to do some of his stuff while also being, one of the worst defenders on the planet.
I have a healthy amount of cynicism, which is useful when talking about contracts in sports. And it comes with the thought that they're not paying for the good things a player can do. They're just paying retainer fees. It's just like, I just want to keep Lillard away from Miami. I want to employ him so he can't work anywhere else. Is he going to be a superstar? I hope so, but he's ours and we have him committed. So you can't really lend your services to anyone else in a year or in 2 years. We're going to make sure you're unobtainable because no other team has this money. No other team, or fewer teams have this money. Fewer teams are willing to make that commitment. We want you on a retainer fee. Jalen Green, right? It's like, he's not the best, but we want his services, whatever that may be.
I thought you were going to go into that old cliche about like prostitutes. You're like, you're not paying him to stay, you're paying him to leave. And I was like, well, where's he going with this? I'm like, he's going to crush it.
I mean, like,
you're paying Dame Lillard to leave. I'm like, wait, huh?
It's like, I'm in a babysitter world, but like my friend has a great dog sitter, and I always tease them because my other friends are like, can I get the name of this dog sitter? And they're like, well, no, because then he's going to have to work for you and he can't be there for me. So I'm paying him to keep him away from you. And I'm like, fair enough. This
That's
is how
what
the
they
NBA
say about
kinda
dog
works.
sitters. You're not paying them to sit the dogs. You're paying them to leave.
But like the Lillard example, Milwaukee kind of came through as the dark horse team to sign him because we heard about Miami for so long. That not only, this is a voting game theory thing, not only got Lillard's talent, whatever they may be, on the Bucks, it kept them away from their rivals, the Heat. It's like an old Red Sox Yankees thing, right? But it is the retainer fee that I am stuck on.
Yeah, I get this idea. And I think in the case of Lillard, the Bucks saw it as an opportunity to change their championship window. And at the time, I looked at it and said, I get it. This makes sense to me because they weren't going to win as currently constructed. And I still think that's true.
Can you
when
be
they did
cursed
that
by
trade,
a championship? Can winning a championship curse you?
sure,
Because
it's
they've
worth
done
being
everything.
cursed, but
Yeah. They've been, sorry to interrupt you, but their persona as champions is not suited them very well since.
no, and I think it typically prevents you from making bold moves.
Smart.
And I think that's where they decided, okay, this is the bold move. We tried running it back a couple times. We were not successful. We're going to make the bold move. We're going to get rid of Coach Bud, We're gonna bring in Dame Lillard. This is the bold move, and this is what it's going to be required to make Giannis compelled to sign a longer term extension.
We traded away
we're
Drew
gonna give-
Holiday. What the
We're
fuck?
going to give him his coach. We're going to bring in Dame Lillard. Giannis, you're good, right? Okay, cool. So we're ready to rock. And then you're like, well, that doesn't make Brooke Lopez any younger. It doesn't make Chris Middleton any healthier. It doesn't make your new coach Doc Rivers any less of a. Like, I don't know
Choose your
if
words
he's a
wisely.
I don't know if he's a liability, only because Doc Rivers teams usually win games. He plays his stars into the ground. He plays veterans. If
He
Doc
usually
is
has
gonna
good
do one
players on
thing-
his team.
And I'm not going to say he overachieves during the regular season, but he plays in a certain way that lends itself to regular season success. He plays his starting lineup a zillion minutes. He doesn't play young guys to develop them as talent. He plays veterans who typically are better than their younger counterparts. But this takes a toll over time because guys either get hurt, players get unhappy with their role because he really is very subservient to his star players. So again, he has a way that works for self-preservation and for some regular season success, but there are diminishing returns because after a while, you don't develop any talent. Your supporting players get annoyed, and every point guard ends up hating him. Whether it was James Harden or Ben Simmons or Chris Paul, maybe it's because he was a former point guard, but whatever the case is, they just never fuck with him.
I'm willing to go a step further. Is Doc Rivers the Grim Reaper for good NBA franchises? Like, does he just descend with his black cloak and his what is that? What do you call that? It's a reaper, right? Like the curved
A scythe?
a scythe, yeah.
Scythe, yeah.
Because we know about the drama in Clipperland now, clearer. We know about what happened in Philly with Ben Simmons and the kind of collapse of the chemistry there. And
Also,
now,
and Harden. It wasn't
Harden,
just
yes.
Simmons. It was also Harden, yeah.
and now he's in Milwaukee with a superstar in his prime. And now we get rumblings after just a couple seasons of Doc Rivers that Giannis is kind of open to being traded away. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Giannis, if he's happy in Milwaukee, should retire a Buck.
So right now, the Bucks are last in the East.
Only 5
1-5.
games, small sample size.
Yeah, small size.
Bad polling.
The offense ranked 20th, defense ranked 24th, net rating 26th. They've been bad, and they almost got a win against the undefeated Cavs the other night, but Donovan Mitchell hit a game winner, heartbreaker for Doc Rivers and his troops. Look, I think the Bucks are. I don't think they're this bad of a team.
No, they'll be
I think they're going to be okay. But the real question is, so what?
Uh-oh. We're getting an existential pizza guy here.
Right. No, I just mean, okay, so you guys sort this out and you become a 6 seed. Middleton's back. We're okay. You lose in the first round of the playoffs to a better team. I just mean,
Knicks.
where is the end game for this, though, right? I when I say who cares, I don't mean that that's futile because like 99% of the league is being futile.
It's
You're going to
the
end up losing.
Bucks friends we made along the way, right?
Fine. I just mean, at what point do you say, all right, Lillard's mid-30s, Middleton's old, Brooke Lopez is like late 30s almost at this point, Giannis is turning 30? I mean, just how long can you keep rolling with this?
Yeah, and Lillard, this week had to defend the team a little bit, and he was like, I can't take over anymore in not to the blazing is insane, but when he was in Portland, he was taking over like entire fourth quarters, right? And they lived and died with him. In Milwaukee, he claims he doesn't have that option. even though he has scored big totals in the Bucks with the Bucks, but he claims like it's not his team anymore. You have Giannis here. I came to help him. So it's kind of like the seeds of the blame game. He's like, did you guys preserve MF Doom's legacy properly?
Well, both of them thus far have been spectacular, to their credit.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, I don't know why he was so mad. Everyone's like, "You're doing good, man." Like,
he's been
not
great.
your fault.
He's been great. The rest of the team has not been great, but Giannis and Lillard are keeping their end of the bargain here. They've been fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that last game they lost, they are blameless in that one. They were outrageous. I think they averaged or combined for 80 points hyper efficiently. Lillard went 10 of 15 from three or something like they did not betray the Bucks. No.
And I love Milwaukee. I have a gallery in Milwaukee that the owner is a diehard Bucks fan. But I want to be Anthony Edwards here, put on my Oakleys and say fuck him. Like,
damn.
other than
Cream
the Knicks,
City.
other than the Knicks, are they the corniest team in the NBA? I mean, when I say that, it's just like Giannis is just like, oh, I don't practice with other NBA players. I don't mess with my competition. We're like, we know this Jordan originalist stuff. And then you get Dame Lillard being like, I don't run from the grind and all this stuff. Delightful. Don't get me wrong. This is entertainment and it's delightful corniness, but like no one is shedding a tear for the Bucks who kind of like dish out virtue as their brand.
This
Love
is
that
true.
city. Yeah.
I also think that was kind of a last year's issue, and we spoke about it. This version,
These hushed tones is scary.
well, I'm saying let's see how they deal with some adversity, because we know Dame's history, we know Giannis's history, we know last year was not great. But I do think they may be confronted by what we've always wanted, which is Dame Lillard stranded in Cream City.
Okay. We gotta allude to the must-read Cookies Hoops blog post that we dropped this week, and you mentioned you go down the teams that panic. Should fans of the Bucks be panicking now? And you said the dream for everyone with a conscience, is to strand Dame Lillard on that island in the ocean of Milwaukee.
As someone who also likes Milwaukee,
I love
I'm
that
not
place.
using this as, wow, you'd rather be anywhere but Milwaukee. Milwaukee's cool. It's close to Chicago. I like Milwaukee.
Beautiful.
But this is about Dame Lillard.
Yeah, let's get this
And-
straight.
His behavior on the way out of Portland and his behavior in Portland about how he was the only guy who was man enough to, stick to his guns and no, you got to come and join me. And then eventually was like, actually, no, I would like to go somewhere else.
Yeah. I love it.
And then-
Hilarious. Yeah.
And then kind of backtracked on it.
Thank
Actually,
you,
wait,
Dame Lillard.
now you want to trade me? Like the whole thing is really funny.
Yeah.
So putting him in another frigid small market city, back to his old tricks of being like, here I am, like the last real hooper alive. But at like 35 years old in Milwaukee is like kind of amazing.
Did you guys protect Dame Lillard like MF Doom? Should we be painting roll gates with Dame Lillard's image on it, Dame Dollar? Are we doing this right? Should Chrissy's have a Lillard mural on their storefront?
I would like for Dame Lillard to live his dream in Miami, competing for a championship, a divorced man in a land of excess.
Oh my god, I was like, what point are you getting to about Miami?
But I'm saying this is what Lillard wanted. It's way funnier if he just ends up his entire career as like taking the moral high ground
Yeah. Yeah.
in small market cities that are uncompetitive.
I do miss the flamethrower that is Dame Lillard, though. I do miss those moments. I mean, like he
He
is
did
a
it last game. Let's give him credit.
No,
He had,
in
like,
in
40.
big moments, like in deep into the playoffs, right? Like regular season, love it, but it is some real nerd like backpack rap stuff to be calling game winners in the second week of the NBA, which I'm all for. But like I want the big moment Dame. I want him in the finals. I miss it. I miss my youth. Every year that goes by makes me sad for Dame Lillard.
Yeah, I wish him no ill will,
Yeah.
other than all the ill will that I've just wished on him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but just to contradict that ill will, I'm like, the most joyous use of a villain would be to see the villain do villainous stuff. I don't want them sequestered, not doing funny stuff. Like, so Tatum in the finals is awesome. Kobe in the finals is awesome. Lillard in the finals is awesome.
Well, part of this, though, to be fair, is that when he went to Milwaukee, there were expectations that this team was going to be amazingly good and going to win the championship, and we were going to see that. So
For
this
some,
idea
for
that
some, yeah.
him being left in Milwaukee as the funniest outcome was our original take, because it was the counterpoint to, oh, they're about to go win a title or they're going to go on a long run. It's like, yeah, but what about the unthinkable? What if Giannis asks out and Dame Lillard gets stuck here? And I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, we're getting closer to that reality.
That's
So-
not bad. Yeah.
So on that topic, I want to ask you something as a Knicks loyalist. Should the Knicks have kept their gunpowder dry for Giannis? And the second part of that, could they still get him if they wanted him?
There's been rumors of every great player coming to the Knicks. If you Google the top 5 players, Knicks, someone has photoshopped their jersey onto them. But there was, rumors originally when Giannis was kind of up for a contract that he would come to the Knicks. I have never, maybe of all the superstars, I like Giannis the least. He's an awesome player. That finals was crazy. He played out of his mind. But in terms of guys who will control a team's salary cap so much, of the players, the pie in the sky players that could come to a team, Giannis is my least favorite because he gets injured. His type of game isn't necessarily modern or thrilling. He's not really like a spacing guy. He's a beast, no doubt. And he is a top dog. I just don't care much for his prototype.
Yeah, I would say he is undoubtedly a top 5 player and has been for the greater part of the last
top
decade.
10, top 5, fine. Yeah, I'm down. Whatever. Let's go. Come on now.
Well, what I'm saying is things have adjusted, but I would say that if you look at, let's say, the last 6-7 years, just, it's Jokic, it's Embiid, it's Giannis. It's those
with
three
you. I'm with you.
who have at least dominated the top of the category. And yeah, Luka's in that mix and SGA and people have come in and out. But
Wemby,
I'm just saying, if you were going to be like, here are the best 3 players of the last 8 years, he would probably be second on most people's list after Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, the way he won that championship is lasered into our brains. The way Anthony Davis did in the bubble is not. But Anthony Davis is like clearly the better player. And this comes with injury. Like, I forgot, Joel Embiid's admission here is sad because like he is so broken, but he's been rumored to come to many big market teams before he re-upped. And I'm like, I don't want him either, but just because of injury. His prototype is what I want. Joel Embiid, I think, is a wonderful player defensively and offensively. Giannis is awesome. I just don't care for his like poor shooting and kind of like old school behaviors. Basketball.
I also think he's a very good rebounder, really good help side shot blocker.
Overrated defender, but like good defender.
I just think defensively he has very good utility if you're using him right, but he's oddly one-dimensional as a defender. It's very rare that you will see him be put on, the best player on another team. And I know this sounds like a boomer critique of like, if he's such a good defender, then why isn't he guarding Tatum? Then why isn't he guarding this? And I'm like, there's a lot more to defense than that. Mm-hmm. But I think there is some truth in that case with him, that he doesn't really do a
He's
great
too
job.
big. He's too big.
Yeah. No, he has a great role as guard the other team's weakest perimeter shooter and then fly over and defend the rim
Yeah.
when anyone gets close to it. Like, that works. They've built championship defenses using that. I also think that, like, if you ask him to do something else, he's not quite as good at it. So, like, that's just how you're going to have to play defense with Giannis. And he also doesn't really play the 5. So there are some issues with him as a superstar that make him a little trickier to build around. But with that said, it's really easy to come up with like 8 destinations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm just being a dick. He's awesome. If he was ever in a Knicks uniform, yeah, sure. But if I had a fantasy team and I was drafting him, I've never taken him in fantasy, for example. I mean, Towns has enough caveats. Like, in terms of mythical NBA players, he to me isn't the top of my list.
Okay, so I'll give you this proposal, this indecent proposal. Bridges, Hart,
Yes.
for Giannis, and
Yes.
you're doing
If
it.
these are the top players going, fuck yeah. But it's going to take
This is
Brunson.
what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
no, you're keeping Brunson and Towns. Any other combination of players, you'd be like, sure.
Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, absolutely. Because however much I love the Knicks now, like they're not winning a championship, might as well. I don't think Towns or Giannis are great at the 5. But fuck it. Yeah. I mean, in a hot second.
And also, those two together would work in this way
Yeah.
we're talking about,
I agree.
where Towns is the big body who holds off in the Lopez way with your arms up, stands in one place, and then Giannis comes flying in from the mix like a pterodactyl. But
It would never
yeah,
happen.
no, I'm with
but
you.
Yeah.
Whatever the critique of Giannis, clearly you give up OG or Hart or Bridges
Any of
or
those guys.
Deuce or Mitch, of course.
Yeah. Remaining number
goes
1
without
draft
saying.
picks. Yeah, for sure.
To me, without getting like way too ahead of ourselves, to me it's like OKC. They don't even really need him. They could just like fuck around and add Giannis. Like, all right, we have all the picks, so it's like just depends on how much of their guys they want to keep. If they said, all right, we'll give you Hartenstein and Dort, and then
can't
whatever
get it
picks,
done.
like
Yeah.
well, they have all the picks. That's what I'm saying. They could say, all right, 10 first rounders, whatever. They could just.
Do you
they could
think that
start-
gets it done in
keep
Milwaukee?
feeding. I
Like,
think Milwaukee would do it.
I know what you mean, but they would. That would be a savvy move, but don't you think Milwaukee with Dame Lillard, the way they've behaved in this Giannis era, would be like, well, you need to give us Chet Holmgren. You need to give us something. You can swap out Holmgren for Giannis. Like, you look good, but we need the number 1 picks. We need Dort and Chet.
Oh, I'm not doubting that they would ask for more. I'm only saying that there are a lot of places that would figure out a way to use Giannis and could give stuff back. I'm only saying that they're the ones who's just like throwing the cash at the on the table.
Yeah,
Like, all right, another first rounder,
yeah. And,
another
yeah,
first rounder.
They're like, oh, 6 number. We'll give you 7 first round picks from Mikal Bridges. They're about to. They have all the equity, right? So they're about to call up Leon Rose and be like, I know he cost you 5 first round picks, but we're willing to give you 7.
Well, for example, the Nets could obviously trade for him if they wanted to because they got like 10 first rounders back for KD, but they don't want to. They're not in a position to do that.
And if you're Milwaukee, I would wait until we find out what picks those are before trading Giannis. So it would have to get you Ace Bailey or Cooper Flag. If it's not those 2 guys, it's off the table.
Yeah, I don't think they're pressed to do it. I do think he will be traded though.
You do?
Whether it's-
Yo, is Doc
I don't
Rivers
think it's
gonna
happening.
really fucking
I don't think
ruin
it's
this?
happening. I don't think it's happening this season though. I
Oh,
think next off
okay.
season is like when it would happen because to your point, OKC might end up with like the number 2 pick or something. And they're
If
like,
it's
all
Ace
right.
Bailey as Milwaukee, I would kind of do it.
But
That sucks.
I think they
though.
will.
It sucks because the boomer in me wants him to retire a Buck. But if I was a Bucks fan, like, right. I don't want that. I don't want an aging superstar on my team gobbling up cap space. But I don't want him to go anywhere. He's like, there's footage of him walking back from the supermarket in Milwaukee on the streets. Like, not every player
No,
has to go to
I'm with
LA or
you.
New York
I'm,
or
I'm
Miami.
I'm with you. I like him in
Yeah.
Milwaukee for life. That fits the brand. He's expressed that
He seems
idea.
happy. Yeah.
I also think that he's kind of out of runway, so to speak, because he's used his leverage in ways that have not necessarily benefited the organization, but he's used his leverage to get, Coach Bud fired, which to me was a poor decision, and to get his guy hired, who then was quickly replaced by Doc Rivers. He was okay with the Holiday Lillard deal. He has used the threat of leaving to get extensions whenever he's wanted them, and to sort of flex within the organization, which he should do. He's the face of the franchise. He won them a title. I am not implying that Giannis should not be coached by who he wants. They should not be running personnel decisions by him. Yes, they should. Same with Joel Embiid. Same with Luka Doncic. If you are the franchise, you should have some control over the environment in which you work and ply your craft. But he's a little bit out of moves. What
I
is it
agree.
now? I don't know. Trade Middleton and Brook and fire Doc. I just mean, what do you want?
And
Other
his
than
postseason
move me.
performance. Yeah. Right. His postseason performance is kind of like the reason why he's out of moves, I think. They're just like, oh, we can't really rely on you anymore. So you can't stretch your influence any further than you have. You get hurt and we're not winning anymore. So I don't know. And he got what he wanted, to your point. So I don't know. The Bucks are thoroughly beige this season in 24-25.
The one note from that article that I wanted to bring up, not to talk about it, but just to reflect back that beigeness. I was kind of shocked that Doc Rivers has only played one guy for more than 8 minutes a game who is under 29.
Is that
And
Marshawn
that is
Beauchamp?
Gary Trent Jr. Or
Oh.
Gary Trent 3? Junior, right?
Junior, yeah.
Who is 26 and a 7-year veteran. Like, he is just not playing any young guys. And this is the Doc Rivers issue. He does this over and over and over until you don't know what you have, until you end up waiving those guys, trading them for nothing, booting them from the organization. And this happened in Philly with, guys like Julian Champagny and Isaiah Joe. You don't play guys, they sit around, eventually you get rid of them.
I know. I mean, the Bucks made numerous mistakes, and I am my NBA solar system revolves around the Knicks. But like, if they still had Dante and they paid him and kept him, prioritized him, like many teams just get rid of this guy. Kind of like that team better. They have better players in the margins. Brook Lopez getting old is really frustrating. Investing in Middleton was like, this is the reason why it's happening. That's why I say, is winning a championship. Can you be cursed after winning a championship? Of course, right? If you re-up the people who got you there because of culture. Middleton being hurt is the reason why all the dominoes are kind of falling.
I mean, they took Marjan Beauchamp.
I like him. He's good.
They took him in the first round 2 years ago. He doesn't play ever.
Yeah, he's kind
At
of
all.
good.
He might be kind of good,
I
but he
liked
doesn't
him.
play at all.
Yeah,
He's playing an average of 2.6 minutes per game.
it's weird.
he-
It's weird.
He's played 13 minutes all season. They don't play him. They didn't pick up his option. Like,
Not
how
developing
do you know
young
what you
players.
how do you know you have?
Yeah, not developing young players and shedding players in the margins like Drew Holiday and Dante is a fast track to like your superstar asking out. And it's not because of huge things like maybe I'm making a too big of a deal of Doc Rivers. Maybe it's not seismic enough. But if you don't do these small things, it shows up in a different way. It shows up as your superstar being like, I wouldn't mind going to these teams. I'm like, you guys should never have traded Drew Holiday.
The problem with Doc Rivers to me is that he has his approach. He's inflexible. And if you as an organization are okay with this inflexible like way of operating, then it is what it is, and you're just going to have to live or die with that. In the case of Philly, when you would have, say, Daryl Morey, like kind of pleading for him to give Paul Reed minutes, and more or less, at points refusing to give him like the veteran center he wanted in order to try to coax him into playing younger guys. If you just don't have your organization working in tandem with people on the same page, then eventually someone gets unhappy. Mm-hmm. Doc Rivers isn't getting the guys he wants, or the GM's like, well, okay, I guess we can't re-sign Beauchamp because Doc won't play him. Mm-hmm. So we can't use this roster spot anymore. Yeah. I think this guy might have potential, but if Doc won't play him and we can't fire Doc, then we can't give this guy a contract because we got to get Jay Crowder back over here or some shit.
Right. Trade for Royce O'Neal. I know. They should have retained the services of Marchand Beauchamp for sure. But, okay, maybe my flaw there is like the potentiality of the draft of young players I overrate, right? It's just like we brought up the Grizzlies. I want to switch to the Grizzlies a little bit. Like Zach Edey, much debated draft pick. Is he a first rounder? Is he suited for the NBA game? He is a college player of the year. There's no way his skill set doesn't translate because he can shoot and he's big and he's smart. And the criticism was like, well, he'll get played off the court in the same way Hall of Famer defender Rudy Gobert does. The use for him is a slim window within a game. So you don't want to invest a lottery pick in just a slim window. You want the potentiality of something bigger, a Swiss Army knife. The Grizzlies take him, small sample size. He doesn't look like he's fit for 24 NBA stuff.
Yeah, I was pretty optimistic about him coming out of college, and not in that I thought he was necessarily going to be a huge superstar, but there were things you thought could translate.
Valanciunas stuff. Let's go.
Well, we saw him, shooting around where it's like, oh, this guy might actually be able to like become a floor spacer. Can he do Brook Lopez-y things? Can he space the floor?
Totally.
And can he be a rim protector, rebounder? And what's been shocking about Edey, and maybe we were naive about these being potential weaknesses, but the fact that he can't block shots is wild.
Really weird, right? Like,
I don't know, if there's one thing he's going to be able to do, it's block some shots and defensively rebound. Not good at either.
This is the most confusing thing when certain guards are great at blocking shots. I remember Dwayne Wade was secretly good defender at blocking shots, and like
not secretly, maybe the best small shot blocker in history, other than like Matisse Thybulle or something.
Yeah, like really awesome, but it doesn't strike me as a skill set that fits his prototype or body. And then I look at Edey, I'm like, you don't have to do much, man. Just like put your hands up. But he stands in the wrong spot. He gets caught drifting. His instincts are off so far, right? He's just not blocking shots. And, you have to kind of mention him. The Blazing is insane, but you got to mention him with Clingan, right? Like, because there were two big men that were maligned, taken very close to each other in the draft. Clingan is a block machine. Like, he's just plug and play Walker Kessler stuff, being like, if Ayton ever gets traded or hurt, Clingan's going to be an automatic double-double with 4 blocks a game.
So per let's say 100 possessions, right? Edey is currently averaging 8 defensive rebounds and 1 block and 1 assist. Not to say the passing was ever anything we thought he'd be great at, but it was also part of his game. I mean, that was what Purdue did. They would pass him the ball, and he would then go ISO, and if they brought help, he kicked it out. So no one's expecting him to be Jokic-y, but passing was something that was
a hope
known to be a strength. You know, that he's going to be able to post up because he can pass. So one assist is not necessarily evidencing that. But the fact that per 100 possessions, 8 defensive rebounds and 1 block, that's crazy bad. He's a good offensive rebounder. I mean, and he deserves credit for that. But that's almost half of his rebounds. The defensive stats really shocking to me, man.
And watching him, I still have shares in him. I still think he's gonna figure something out. I gotta stick by my Chinese brothers, Ben. So it's not a lost cause, but what I notice is like he's just caught out of position a lot, and they pull the early plug on his games. Like they pull him off the court pretty aggressively. He's young, I guess he's young. How old is he?
Like 24 or something, 23. I don't know.
Right, he played a long time in college, and this is the risk. I mean, the well-discussed risk of taking older players in college. The most known knowns, right? Like we know a lot about him, more than a one and done. But he's out of position. He looks a bit slow, and he's just like not doing stuff. I mean, it's early, but other players like do stuff, and you can see they're not good yet. But like Dunn is already doing stuff that we knew he could do, and we love it.
I was going to say, in comparison to Donovan Clingan, who, to Edie's credit, went above him in the draft, right? I mean, he didn't have the same college resume because he's younger and he's only 22. But just by that same measurement of 100 possessions, he's averaging 6 blocks.
Yeah, dude.
Per
He's a
100
block
possessions,
maestro. Yeah.
as opposed to 1. I mean, that if they aren't comparable. He's blocking 6 times as many shots, and he's getting 12.2 rebounds. So, and 9 offensive. So per 100 possessions, he's getting 21 rebounds per 100 possessions, in comparison to 14 and a half by Edie. I just mean,
and Edie's playing next
whatever
to
you
Triple J,
thought of how Edie can figure this out. At this point, it's like he can't do the things that you thought he could do. So what can he do?
And to my Chinese brethren, like he's playing next to the blocks
talking about
guy. Right, in spirit, right? Oh. But Edie is playing next to Jaren Jackson Jr., whose specialty is blocking shots, and he might be just like, let this superhero fly, soar above these skyscrapers, and I will be there to help him, and maybe that's the case. When you have someone as talented as Triple J as your 4, the 5 kind of like can slag off. Is that the right term? Sloth off.
Yeah.
Sag off.
Slag off.
Slag off, mate. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Are there any rookies that you're looking at?
Who have I seen that looks pretty good? I gotta say, I think Sarr is kind of interesting.
He was the KBB number 1 big board. I really like him. He's funny, but as a personality, but he should be really good, I think.
He's getting some defensive numbers. He was shooting like 22% from the floor, which is also just like really funny. And then he's sort of improved a bit. This is a different topic. But we were talking about Clingan. The Blazers with Clingan and Scoot looking okay. They have so many weird vestigial parts. Like, why is Ayton on that team? Why is Jeremy Grant on that team? But Clingan and Scoot, like, I'm not totally out on that duo.
Chaos, but Scoot is playing better. Thankfully, I really want him to do well. We need Scoot to be good. His name is Scoot, but yeah, I'm liking this Blazers rebuild. Like, lost teams can get interesting really fast. I don't know if winning is necessarily in this equation, but like you mentioned Sarr and the Wizards, like I love Bilal Coulibaly, right? Like, is he a star? Like, he's having a better season than Wemby, his running mate. Like, the Wizards went from super snoozeville to like exciting in one summer.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I mean. Like, I don't think that Scoot is by any means good yet. We know that he isn't. He's still hyper inefficient. He's not shooting well. He's little, but he's kind of fun.
Yeah,
And I'm like, all right, you add a top 3 pick to that team, you might just get yourself a league pass viewer, my friend.
I mean, yeah, they should keep on tanking and keep on playing their young guys and trade away Grant and maybe trade away Simons, who's hurt now, I believe. But like, shed anybody over 26.
Never trust anyone over 26 in the NBA. Last topic before we leave. Joel Embiid, who has not played a game this year. There were rumors that he was going to be back over this weekend, and they were unfounded. Philly was fined $100,000 by the bureaucrats over at the league office because they did not divulge the extent of Embiid's knee injuries, which I guess whatever tack you wanted to say. Oh, they're trying to trick the fans into buying tickets, or they just didn't feel like divulging that information as a competitive thing. I don't know. I don't even have a strong take on why they didn't make that information public or why they weren't more forthcoming. I don't really care that much about it. But a beat writer by the name of Marcus Hayes has been very critical of Embiid in the past and wrote a story about a week ago, and in it he questioned why Embiid wasn't playing, which to me is odd when the guy was obviously hurt and we saw him in the Olympics hobbling around. He didn't play in the preseason. But this guy wrote a story basically saying, well, if Embiid wants to be live up to the ideals of like his brother who died in a car accident and his child, well, then he should be playing. That was kind of the gist of it, and you can go and read the exact wording. But yeah, he conjured Embiid's dead brother and baby son to basically call him a loser and not a leader. And the other night in the locker room, they get it into an exchange. Joel says, keep my brother's name and my child's name out of your mouth. Criticize me if you want. And then apparently shoves the guy. And there's a bit of a media firestorm. Is Joel in the right here?
What struck me first after hearing this story was like the death of the written word, because podcasters can go off. Skip Bayless can go off. Donald Trump goes off and says what we say wild stuff too, like, oh, like Giannis is happy walking around with his groceries because we saw him, and like that's not really here or there. That's not about basketball.
Whoa, I want the garbage Gestapo to take over New York.
Yeah, but like, while it's fair game, I think in a podcast, and it wouldn't shock me seeing it written like that. I was like, oh, that's out of bounds, man. Like, you can't really put those words down on a website.
No, I hadn't thought about this, but yeah, if you're like, look, this guy really wants to be a role model. You start saying like, oh, I could see how you might come out of your face with that, but when you read it, like, oh no, this is all wrong.
It violates a decorum, right? It's just like you can't say this about another man. You can say it. You can have a million people listen to it on a Rogan podcast. But if Donald Trump wrote his stuff down, you'd be like, motherfucker. Because is it the record? Is it the historical references that we remember as truth? And
this
journalism.
Is why I don't read.
Oh, except for Cookie Soup's blog posts, which everyone should log on right now if you haven't already. But like,
I have them read to me.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I think has every right to like break that wall and be like, don't talk about this thing. And the writer has every prerogative to be like, watch me, and I'll do it again. Like, it is a tit for tat thing that I think is no one really wins here, but it is within the right of the writer to be a jerk, and it is within Joel Embiid's right to defend himself and to also be a jerk. Let it fly.
A long time ago, I wrote a joke about Prodigy from Mobb Deep in a magazine article. They like front a book, some joke about twinkle toes at the Summer Jam screen. Just whatever. It was just a front of the joke book about Prodigy.
Damn.
And at this time, he had his blog, Infamous Stores. He was like, Ben Dietrich must have Jay-Z's dick in his mouth or something like that. And I was like, that's sick. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Right,
Like I made fun of you. It's 100% valid for you to like insult me back.
Yeah.
It's also flattering because you're like one of my favorite rappers, if not my favorite rapper ever. Like you're
What?
up there.
He's
I just
not
mean
even
he's
my
up
favorite
there.
rapper in that. All right. Yeah.
He's up there.
He's the one. He's the
up
one.
there. I'm just saying he's on that tier. I could never be like, fuck, Prodigy dissed me. Like, that's so cool. Prodigy dissed me. That's really flattering. And I remember Caramonic was like, yeah, I'm envious, man. You got Prodigy dissed you. That's really cool.
I have a story that's kind of
anyway.
No, I have a story kind of like that. Like I used to do a blog about music, like way back, Blogspot, literally, Earl Boykins on Blogspot, and I had said some not nice things about a singer in a band, like they can't sing. If they could hold a note, this would change my entire perception of this whole band. And that singer came up to me at a club and was just like, "Yo, I read what you wrote. That's super fucked up. I'm trying my best over here." And I was like, "You're soaring in the sky over here. I'm just on the ground, just typing away like the
You're
incel
thinking
loser
of
I
Earl
am."
Boykins on the
Yeah,
Denver Nuggets.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not a microwave bucket getter. You think I am. But we end up being really close friends for the next 2 decades. But I remember that interaction. I was just like, "Oh, I don't matter. You matter, but I'm flattered that you have read my blog." And they were just like, "I've always liked you. Can we just be friends? Can we talk this through?" And for the next 2 decades, we did. But like, to your point, I was like, was I taking a shot? Was I shooting my shot at something? Like someone to notice me if I said this thing? And to get that talk back was just like, whoa, this is interesting that Joel Embiid has his hands around my neck.
Well, that's interesting because in my mind, when I wrote that joke about Prodigy, there was no thought of maybe Prodigy is going to read this and be annoyed.
Right,
It was
right, exactly.
Just a joke in a magazine that wasn't even online at the time. It was like
Right.
Like, is Prodigy going to open up this magazine and see that joke? I mean, I guess sure, if someone sees it, they'll show it to him. But it did not cross my mind at all that that Prodigy was actually going to read this joke and be annoyed. That never crossed my mind.
And this was a
But with
generational
basketball
thing.
writing,
Yeah,
generational thing. But today,
because everyone reads everything now.
everyone
Pizza
reads
Man is
everything.
sad because
And-
you don't like his pizza.
And when you talked about Anthony Edwards, we saw that game when he made a comment about Mikal Bridges' jump shot. And we know it's because he saw that on Instagram, just like we all did, then went and made a comment about it
So
on
good.
video so that it would also go on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you write that story about Joel Embiid, you know he's going to read it. So
Right. Fair enough.
I typically will side. I take that back. I'll see journalists get really upset when like Doc Rivers would say like, "What do you know about basketball? You're just a dumb writer." I'm like, fair. Like
totally.
If you're going to criticize someone, it's cool if it's a two-way street.
Kevin
if
Durant, I love what he did.
If I publish a Cookies Hoops blog about Tobias Harris and make fun of him as not being really an assassin scorer, he's totally fair to say fuck you.
Yeah.
If I say it's unserious watching Andre Drummond and he's like, "You know who's unserious? You." I'm like, got me.
Yeah.
You got me, Andre. What can I say? I am
We did
unserious.
it. Yeah. No, for sure.
But the back and forth, totally legit. I don't know. I've never been a fan of that writer. I think
Same.
he is unnecessarily toxic. I think he is ignorant. I think he is trying to push buttons, and this is the kind of attention he wants. So I do hope that Embiid, who despite his pretending not to care, does care about this sort of stuff.
Of course,
And I do
Joel
think
Embiid cares about everything.
I do think he cared, even when his children or his family members weren't being brought up. I still think he cared then, but this gave him a reason to confront him. And I'm not saying it's dishonest. I'm saying he confronted him for a legitimate reason, but I still think he didn't like this writer. I still think he's been reading the negative articles in the past and not enjoying them. you know. So I just hope Embiid doesn't get like fined or suspended, because to me this is a whole bunch of nothing.
I mean, the culture of hating on the rebuild that the Sixers were involved in is still happening, right? Like Joel Embiid, should we fine the team for their misrepresentation of Joel Embiid's injuries? I'm like, no, 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 just look at his knees. Use your own discretion. His knees are shot. He's given his body to the 76ers, and his body doesn't work anymore. It's like, well, you told us he was kind of healthy. I'm like, just look at his knees. Just like watch him play for the entire last season. He is not. He is dominant, but he's not right.
Did you notice that those don't even look like knees anymore?
Dude,
They
I'm
just
just
look like
like,
stumps.
and it's a hand slapping for the way that team was built. And I think the NBA is still upset about. Well, they still attribute the process Sixers for devaluing the entertainment quality of their league, right? It's like now we have all these teams just jockeying for draft status, and I mean, David Robinson was paired with Tim Duncan in the same way.
Well, I think some of this is Maury also.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Harden thing, I don't believe they actually ended up getting fined because of Harden's like revelations about promises he was given, but they also, remember, lost second round picks
Yep.
the prior year when they brought in PJ Tucker during the Summer of Dogs. This is the third time they've been fined for something with Embiid's health. Like, there's something going on there that
Yeah.
the NBA doesn't appreciate the way that Maury is doing something, and they keep
Right.
just throwing fines at him over and over and over, because it's not happening to other organizations with the same frequency at all.
No, not at all. They have the league's attention for, to your point, for one reason or another.
And maybe it is something where I don't know. Maury is like, nah, fuck him. We're not
That would
going to
be
do
amazing.
that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Well, I mean, it seems to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
But they're definitely doing something intentionally that the league just keeps fining him for, and they're still like, we don't care.
Yeah. You know who does care?
Me and you about perfect pods?
That's right. And thankfully, the league doesn't fine us. They shower gratitude towards us.
Tomorrow we'll be waking up in a new America, Andrew, and next week we'll talk about it.
All the garbage is cleared from, all the snow is gone. There must be a new world out there, and we will.
A new horizon awaits.
And a new Perfect Pods YouTube.
Cookies.
Cookie.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.